Hello, everyone. Coming back now with an updated tier list for the Three Trolls upgrade order. I've been able to play them a lot more since my initial impressions of making a tier list, just looking at it and reading on the paper, and then actual application of playing the game, playing the different scenarios. And I ended up taking them to a tournament a couple weekends ago now, and in that tournament I was able to go undefeated and take first place with the trolls, proving that they do have some legs, but there are some caveats to that where there was some luck involved with the last scenario because of my build. And that is where this new tier list is going to be designed for the most optimal, giving you the best competitive chance to play them basically at any point level. Because it's too crucial to be able to win every matchup when needed, and especially with limited scenarios. It'll be interesting to see if this changes at all with the new ones, but I am very confident that for the most part the scenarios won't change it, because it is pretty much agnostic to the scenarios and any specific army, and it's making sure that you can always play the game. My first thought was it's basically always full bellies. But I truly kind of think now that your first upgrade has to be one of these two. And it's got to be either Bowl Them Over or Cover of Darkness. Now, that might seem crazy, but with how I have found out the third match at the tournament, the one that I basically only won because my opponent misplayed, and then I got a little lucky because it was only 500 points. So I only had 2 upgrades. I took full bellies, nothing like a warm fire. Gives me the heroic stats, awesome, makes them more survivable, gives me more might, and it's just all around really great. And then nothing like a warm fire makes the banner effect huge, and also gives you the VPs if you need it. But the issue was, in the third round, I played against all mounted Rohan in Fog of War. And in this scenario, they have no reason to commit to fighting you. They can go take their objectives, they can let you take your objectives, and they're just going to shoot you. And because I didn't have darkness or bowl, there was no way for me to contest their shooting at me. And Bill ended up going down to Legolas spiked his shots and one-shot him after his fate got burnt by a couple archer shots, and Legolas just one-shot him with all 3 shots. And it was just like this, there was nothing I could do. It was me just watching my opponent play the game. My hope was to use the 3 trolls to cage him into a corner so that I would get charges off, and then once you start getting charges, you could do combats and start getting into the heroes and get some things going in your favor. And luckily, even after Bill went down, they were a little, I'm not exactly sure what happened, but their measurement wasn't clean enough, and they got too lazy with their movement. And it got to the point where they thought they could stand still. I was able to move Tom 6 inches to in charge of charging Legolas and Gimli. And the next turn, fortunately, won the heroic move off, because once again, if I lose the heroic move off there, and back to the same point, and I probably never win the game, because he's not going to give me the opportunity again to charge him. So I needed that window of them missing some measurements and getting lazy, or just mismeasuring something and getting too comfortable with the matchup, which should basically be a free tabling almost. And fortunately was able to get basically all the pieces to fall into where I could charge him, and then from there it was just slowly grinding, eventually taking out Gimli and Legolas and taking out a bunch of guys, and then ended up breaking them, and then ended up winning the game with paralyzing Legolas with the sack, and then the next turn beating him up with the 2 trolls that were left to get revenge for Bill. Bert and Tom got revenge for Bill. So that is where I have fully went from thinking that Bowl was an upgrade I love and really like taking, but I can understand people not taking, and Darkness, where I was like, my original thought, and for the most part this still stands, where a board should have enough terrain that you are good to go without it, was my thought before. Where I was like, sure, you can go up against Mirkwood Rangers. It's going to suck. you're going to have to slog through their shooting. But their shooting's not super great into you. It's still pretty good when you on 6s. But for the most part, like, you should be able to survive there. You can place the campfire to provide more in the ways from like a forest, if there's a forest that they can really get advantage in. The all-mounted forces, without Bowl or Darkness, there's nothing to force them to get within range of your threat. Because the thing is, if they get in 12 inches of you, all of a sudden now you can throw boulders back at them, and your boulders are going to work way better than their bows are going to work. Even like Legolas really doesn't even want to stand in 12 inches of them. So that's where Darkness comes in, of these all-mounted forces that can kite you forever, where you have no tools to get close to them and force them to engage you. Darkness solves that all by itself, because now you can say, cool, it's Fog of War, I'm going to go sit on my objective. Like, maybe you go sit on yours and then you force the draw, but that likely isn't going to happen. There's probably going to be some factors that play into it more than that. But you can play around now the fact that they can't shoot you beyond what you can throw at. Then that's the same thought for Bull, where instead of making it to where they can't shoot at all, is you now have throwing weapons, so you can move and throw on a 5. It's not great, right? But if you're moving all 3 of them and getting 3 throws a turn, you should be hitting at least 1, and you can pretty frequently hit 2. It makes it pretty likely that you can start getting some kills, whittling them down, and then especially if you can start dismounting heroes, it can really be a big deal. Against him, he was playing the army that lets him remount, so that wouldn't be as good. But basically, anytime you kill a dude is then removing a horse that the heroes can then re-pick up. One of those two, I fully believe, is necessary. I think I would lean towards Cover of Darkness. It is the safer bet. It is the more static, like, it's not as good in the non-heavy shooting matchups. It's still, you get the +1 to wound on your boulders. So it does something every game, which is also the thing where my ordering of upgrades is based on effectiveness in making you win matchups and effectiveness across all matchups. So that's why, as we get down the list, there's one that I see constantly people are saying has to be one of their best upgrades. You have to take it early. You have to take it every time. And I have never brought it, and it has not kept me from winning any of my games. In any of the games I could have brought it where it would have mattered, it wasn't needed. So Cover of Darkness, I think, is the safer bet, whereas Bowl is kind of like the more fun. I don't want to say bad, but it has the upside of, in the non-shooting matchups, it is way better than Cover. Getting the shoot and scoot as well as the on the charge, because I think one of their biggest weaknesses is destroy the supplies, and bowl them over is one of their best answers for destroy the supplies. So having that is really crucial for that. But like I said, Cover is more consistent, and it is way better against the like all mounted lists that it can skirmish, like Rohan, or even the all ranger lists with either like Mirkwood Rangers or like even Garrison of Athelion having 50% bows. The strength 2 isn't super great into the D7 trolls, but Tom is still scared of that fairly well because there's still 6s on him. It really comes to I think either or you can take and it'll be okay. It just allows you to play the different matchups differently. And then once you get both of them, you're really good to go. And they're a great pair. They synergize really well. So definitely I'm going to be putting Cover of Darkness up here as the de facto must take. But understand that it's either that or Bowl. And then you can push the other one down a little bit. Because once you get that first one out of the way of necessaries, then it's basically the same as Bowl before. You're taking full bellies immediately, and then you are taking Nothing Like a Warm Fire immediately after that. And this is probably very unexpected for me, for sure. But like I said, it's all that matchup. It's 100% because of that matchup. So this is still now like the de facto, I think, S tier. There is nothing down here that is as crucial as these 3. Nothing Like a Warm Fire, honestly, maybe even could be A tier. I think I like that because these 2 are what really make the list work. And I think you can play without this and still do okay. But you need these 2 to do well. Because you need the consistency from the extra stats and the extra survivability, and you need the ability to win the games. So the only S tier I'm going to say is those 2. And then Nothing Like a Warm Fire and Troll Cunning are the A tier for sure. You need the Vanner VPs from this one. You would honestly maybe take it for just that, but fortunately it's a lot better than that for 50 points. So you're getting the Vanner VPs if they're not touching it. You're getting the 18-inch banner effect, 18-inch resistant to magic, 18-inch courage buff, which is really useful because their courage isn't bad, but without the buff, it's not consistent enough. And when I played Ents in the tournament, every roll but one courage roll, the fire buff mattered. I was rolling the exact amount that I needed to fail without the fire buff. But because you can get it within 6 inches of it without this, there's play, and the idea of being able to basically be the only army with faction terrain is also really cool, and I really like. And my favorite part about Nothing Like a Warm Fire is it lets you play it more strategically and still benefit from it. If you don't have Nothing Like a Warm Fire, you really need to think about where to place it to get the most out of the effect. Whereas once you have the 18 inches, you can kind of place it wherever. And it's like, oh, there's a choke point that needs to be blocked off. It allows you to block that off. It allows you to do other things. And it's really fun to think about, and it gives a lot of play to the army every game you sit down. If it's a different table that you've not played on before, it gives you new options, especially with like providing in the ways for enemy shooting and stuff. And then Troll Cunning should be pretty obvious. It is just the de facto keep them alive once things start going poorly. Because eventually you're going to lose a fight. You either roll like a 4 high that you don't want to spend 2 might to win, or you just completely flub out on a 4 high when maybe you don't even have 2 might left. Maybe you only have 1 might and they rolled the 6, or you're out of might because it's later in the game and they've trapped your troll. This is what keeps them alive. So it's not as crucial as full bellies, because just the might and fate normally does a better job of Troll Cunning, because it doesn't matter if they just shoot you to death or just win the fights. All the time, eventually they will kill you, so you just need to make them to where they're winning less fights, and then when they do win them, it's less impactful thanks to Troll Cunning. So, and the rerolling trapped wounds can really matter with either barges. So there can be situations where you might be like, well, why would I barge here? Because you can barge maybe a hero to go prone, and then once you have done that, especially if like maybe you have fight value on them and they can't really strike up into you, and you've got like Bert who can strength if he needs to wound them a lot better. But it's honestly not even that necessarily. If you're fighting a D7 hero and you're wounding on 4s, and you're able to roll 6 dice, re-rolling all failed wounds, a lot of heroes can die to that very, very easily. So, and that's where other strategy comes in. But I think A tier, solidly, Nothing Like a Warm Fire, Troll Cunning. I'm taking Nothing Like a Warm Fire over Troll Cunning every day of the week. But Troll Cunning is for sure the 4th one I'm taking, because that's when you hit that 600 point mark, and that's where people are going to start getting like 30 models. The hordes are going to start getting 40 and 50 models potentially. So that's where the trapping really matters. But playing it at 500, I didn't miss this at all. The only time I was getting hit by trapped effects was when Bert went down to a paralyze, and Troll Cunning wouldn't have helped that anyway because he was prone. So I think at the sub 600 points, Troll Cunning is not necessary, because their model count should be low enough that you are good to go and can just play the game. And then when you need to win fights that you're going to be trapped, that's where you can kind of really dump the might. Because at this point with this upgrade order, you don't really care about heroic moves. There might be times where you do it to maybe shut down magic, or you need a cut like I did, where you have to catch someone, like you have to take the roll off to catch them. But for the most part, it was the nice thing about not having bowl them over or rumbling momentum. I was just like, cool, I lost priority, who cares? Cool, you got the Witch King, I just resist it with my will or my resistance to magic. Cool, we're chilling. Whereas with other builds, you are more pressured into calling moves more, which at lower points is not that big of a deal because the might is okay, but especially as you start getting into higher points, calling moves isn't great. But there's other factors that mitigate that. So I would say this is the top 4 for sure. And going from here, because at this point you have taken likely cover of darkness, bowl immediately becomes better. And if you've taken bowl here, then cover's here, right? They just flip spaces, because they synergize so well together that they just feel great to play with. Like, the couple of games I've been able to play them with both them over and cover feels so good being like, you hid your hero behind this one guy because the last turn, like, I charged in with some guys, I combated, I barged, and now I've opened up your hero, except I've won the priority, or I call it move off, and I win it, but maybe the hero is completely bubble wrapped still. All of a sudden, a 4+ hitting boulder that kills on a 2, most likely, is just dropping that warrior and then getting into the hero. So, and just the scooting and shooting, you wounding, like, everything on 2s, just makes the 5s hitting, they convert just every time, basically, and it's a lot better. It feels good. After that, now's where I think the obviousness. I think a lot of people don't rate bowl as well as they should, but the synergy between it and cover makes it. I think this is very easily the top pairing. And honestly, part of me wants to put bowl in A because this is the split of like this is like what you take, because bowl still helps with the other things. It just enhances that combo of cover and bowl versus the all mounted stuff. I do think I am gonna bump it up to A tier, but it is below the other two. And I like this because now this kind of separates the 5 that I don't think there's any argument on the order anymore, and what you're taking. This is what you're doing. Basically, anything else is less optimal. So, if you want to do something else, that's fine, but you are not playing them to win a tournament at that point. You are either skewing for a particular matchup or a particular game you're wanting to have a little bit of a meme fest. Like, oh, I'm going to do Stone Troll Endurance, Tasty Livestock, Full Bellies, because I just want to not die, is basically the goal. But this is, I think, the most competitive. You're getting all of these at 650, and that is the build. And a lot of people say that they don't really go above this points level. I'm not fully convinced on that. I haven't played them a lot above 650, but I think that up until about 800 is where they really are okay. And I think that's where maybe the next tier is going to break down of we're going to do the upgrades, the next 3 that get you to that 800 point, and then the last 4 are in the bottom 2 for sure. So just kind of showing you how the idea of this works. And I truly think that they want to be playing at 500, so you get both of these. I think for 400 is, like, it's cheap enough, but once again, all mounted things, you're just in the same boat as before. So you really need 450 to get that cover or bowl, and then you really want 500 to get the full bellies. Like, the full bellies, like, the more I've played them, the more I think Cover of Darkness, especially because in the movie, when they see the sun, they just die. I think Cover of Darkness should have just been part of their army bonus. They should get to, it's not a choice, it's night. They get Cave Dweller, or maybe put Cave Dweller on one of the upgrades to make it to where you have to prioritize taking that upgrade to not have the +1 shooting. But that would still feel bad because then you're just in the same boat of you have to take this upgrade. The only reason why it's like kind of okay as is you have the choice between bowl and cover. But little distracted, a little off topic there, but that's my 2 cents. Is Cover of Darkness's darkness effect should have been built into the army and not a mandatory 50 points because of those matchups where it is literally necessary. So next ones, this is where people really start misevaluating a lot, in my opinion, where I've seen people say Dominant Presence needs to be an S tier, an auto take. People said like a Savvy Fighters is really good. It's one of you should be taking it before a lot of these. And Rumbling Momentum's not that good because you need to be doing move offs and stuff. But I think where I am at is that you've got Tasty Livestock being your 700 point upgrade, and Rumbling Momentum being your 750 point upgrade. And then now that you are at 800, I think now is where you can kind of potentially have a lot of flexibility. And now Dominant Presence, I think, might be the now you take it upgrade. So, because my thought was at 800 is where now you start having people that have enough models that if you're going at 800 points going up against something that has 70 models, you kill 35 of them, break them, the game ends. You've only got a combined dominant of 11, which I think was a mistake. Also, I think that the It should have at least been Bill 7, Bert 5, Tom 3 to add 4 total dominant to go from 11 to 15. I think that would have been a good spot for them to be, where each of them has a different level of dominance, or basically just them all be 5. But it being 5, 3, 3, and there only being 11 total effective models between them, that's where I think once you start hitting that 800 points, dominant presence starts becoming there. I could see an argument for putting it above rumbling momentum, but my current mindset with this is we have too few scenarios. This is the one that if we get the new scenarios with the match played guide, and like half of the total scenarios have objectives that really matter and you need to be controlling them, might go to the top of B. But currently, and I don't think it's going to change enough to warrant it going up. And it's only once you get to those higher points where you're really facing swarms that even after you've broken them, they well and above have your dominance count covered, is where all of a sudden now dominant really matters. Because even if an army has 15 or has 30 models, so their breakpoint's 15, you break them at 15, they're not going to end the game there. Chances are they lose enough models on that last turn to where you're probably tied. And so the thought is 30 models is 600 points, but a lot of the time, even the horde armies, they can really start falling apart. And as long as the game doesn't like end the one turn, or if it ends on quarter, that's the big thing, is once a game ends on quarter and they still have like 20 models or 15 models, that's where it starts mattering for me. It's not less so the break point and more the quarter point. The break point matters too, and it's a factor, but really once the quarter point is above your 11 dominance by enough that is reliable for the game to end with them having more control of the board than you have, that is where it really is like, okay, now we've gotta think about this and have the ability to play into those matches. So basically, until an army hits 60 models, dominant presence I don't think is needed. It is overrated, but it then starts becoming necessary, especially assuming there will be more objective-based scenarios, but not enough to warrant it going way up in the thing. And the people that put it higher are just overvaluing it because it's not necessary. Like, if you can't just kill the models, which this sounds like, oh, just roll 6s, but like truly, like up until like the 800 point mark, just table the opponent. Just go into them and say, cool, I'm just going to kill your guys because I'm going to roll enough dice and enough of the fights, I'm going to win them, and I'm slowly going to kill them, and I'm going to whittle you down, and then eventually I will win the game. And that's how a decent amount of the games go, of, sure, I don't win the point now, but by the end of the game I will. So it's kind of like a crutch and a win more until the army numbers just break the army. Since, like I said, the dominance being what it is. Another one that people rate really highly is savvy fighters. And I think savvy fighters... Actually, I jumped ahead. I jumped ahead because of dominant presence being at the bottom. I have been... Every time I've brought Tasty Livestock, I have been impressed. It has always felt so much better than what it looks like on paper. The 4 extra wounds... If you don't look at Fate and you look at their wounds, they each have 3. So you're getting an extra troll, like a full extra troll in this upgrade for 50 points. So I think when you look at it like that, and you're actually getting more than that because you're getting a 4th one, but I think reliably getting all 4 can be tough, but getting 3 is very doable. Eating 3 of them in a match is super doable, because the 3-inch bubble that you just have to, during your move, get into is super forgiving. So Tasty Livestock really rewards a player who can look at the map, which you need to be able to do this with trolls anyway because of how the army is. It really gives you the ability to look at the map, say, I need to place my campfire here, I need to place my livestock markers here, because I know that the campfire here can block this, and I know that it'll provide the effects to my trolls still, and then the livestock are spaced out here where I need them to be, so that way as we're moving up to them and then getting into them, I am now getting to eat them even with the lines. Because like I've reached over a battle line and eaten it before because it's just 3 inches, which is a pretty forgiving amount. So basically you place 1 or 2 if you're going to be facing some shooting a little early, so that way you can kind of take the wounds and then just eat them back up instead of burning fate. And then based on if you did 1 or 2 in the front, you do the 2 or 3 in the back, where the like clash is going to happen. So the lines clash, you hit, and it feels great when all of a sudden it's like, cool, like sure they triangle pointed you with 3 guys with some spear supports, but you've got troll cunning, so you can't be trapped. You don't win the fight. You don't want to spend like the might or 2 to win it, or maybe you can't, and you go, cool, lose it. You take 1 or 2 wounds, and then all of a sudden in the next turn you just go, cool, here's 2 things that I get to eat eventually, because either you do a move off that you have to do to eat them, or eventually you just kind of get priority and they just kind of give it to you. It's just having that flexibility of being able to not just like lose a wound early and be like, cool, that's just gone now for the rest of the game, and being like, yep, that's fine, I'm just gonna immediately eat it back up the next turn, we're okay. And then rumbling momentum, a lot of people are like, same deal, I don't want to be taking things that make me need to be calling heroic moves. But rumbling momentum is way more than just when you win priority and get to charge, or when you have to call heroic moves and get the move off to go your way, because of one crucial rule that monsters get, and that is barge, and as well as all heroes heroic combat. So what rumbling momentum really gives you is this ability to where, now when I was saying that before thing, let's say like a Boromir or a hero charges you, they lose the fight. Well, you could put 3 attacks into them. You'll probably take a wound or 2 off. That will burn some fate. But now all of a sudden you can go, cool, you have positioned it a way where I'm going to barge. I'm going to barge to where Boromir goes prone. Now that Boromir has gone prone, I'm going to go into him. And then I am assuming you're doing this because you have the fight value on him. It's either Thomas sneezed on him, or Bert just has fight value and he didn't strike, or kind of thing, or you struck back and you have the fight value. I don't really recommend doing it if you can risk a roll off. Just either take the kills on the dudes or just roll the attacks. But as soon as you either put him in a sack, which is how I've done this, where one Tom goes in, sneezes on Boromir, wins the fight, puts him in a sack, another troll barges into him. And now, even though that troll was charged, he has now won the fight, barged, moved now and charged, gets his +1 die. It's either a prone guy that can't strike back if you completely flub, or you should be having the fight value, or they're in the sack. You win the fight automatically, or win on fight value, which you should be doing. And then you're rolling 4 dice, doubling to 8, and because you have Troll Cunning, those all reroll. So basically no hero will survive a rumbling momentum boosted attack when they're trapped because of Troll Cunning. The 8 dice were at worst you're normally wounding on 4s. Very rarely are you wounding anything on 5s. And even still, 8 dice re-rolling, even a lot of dwarf heroes, because they only have typically like 2 wounds, 2 fate, or 3 wounds, 1 fate, like for a lot of them, it really is consistent at killing basically any hero in the game. And that's where the flexibility of it, where it's not just the move phase where you get this bonus. Getting it in the combat phase through either heroic combats or through barges is really what matters. And that's where I think it's a lot better than people think. But it's also gone down in my list because it was like my 4th upgrade. I'm pretty sure we'll take a look at it, but like I was full bellies 1st, nothing like a warm fire 2nd, troll cutting 3rd, rumbling momentum is your 4th one. Like that was my top 4, because you need rumbling momentum to have the extra killing power to get through things. But as some of the stuff and play into monsters has developed, it's fallen out of grace. But it's still, I would still be taking it probably over any of these every day of the week. That's the rounding out to 800. Now's the upgrades where it's like, there's still, I think you're fine up to 900 points because you're still not taking bad upgrades. And honestly, even at that point, which hit 950, kitchen utensils isn't horrible, but it's not great because I've rolled enough ones where there are times where it's like, I wish I had kitchen utensils. But Savvy Fighters and Troll Endurance are here in C. I honestly, at this point, I don't even know if I would put Savvy Fighters above Troll Endurance, because once you've gotten to the point where you've got, okay, I've got my 3 fate on all of them, plus their 3 wounds, plus tasty livestock, now Stone Troll Endurance looks a lot more promising, because that 6 up, if you can have all your fate, obviously now this is an ideal scenario, but you've got 3 fate on each of them with 3 wounds. meaning that each of them have a potential 6 base, goes up to 18. With Tasty Livestock, that's 22. All of a sudden now, that's basically 24 rolls, so you should be getting a handful of 6s now, and each 6 you get earlier on now just adds on to the potential to roll more 6s down the line, because that's an extra wound that it's given, so it's an extra roll you'll get. But there are also just games where your opponent doesn't wound you. They don't have like the shooting to wound you. They go into fights and you just win all the fights. Like, that has happened. So I think it's good, because especially once you start taking mass wounds, because like maybe you can't be trapped, or maybe you did get trapped because you went prone, but you're just against like Army of the White Hand with 12 hobos on your guy. That's still 12 dice, even if it's not doubling. So just being able to be like, cool, you put 4 wounds on me still because you rolled hot, but oh, look at that, I got my Stone Troll Endurance to pop once, saved me a wound, and now I can start fading, and then, oh, I lived, and now I all of a sudden restock my health with Tasty Livestock, and the next turn I win and kill a bunch of dudes. So it goes up in value a lot more once you have Tasty Livestock and full bellies, but it's still not amazing. And once you start getting up to this point, the other issue is Savvy Fighters becomes a lot better. And that's why I think I would put it above, is up until the like 800-ish points, like even 650, 700, most lists, unless they are like the Fellowship, which is its own different can of worms, and you answer that differently, you have Bill that is fight 8 and that can call strike. And then you have Tom, who has the sneeze to effectively have super strike in a way, because there are a lot of heroes that just puts them in the bin. Now, it's great once you have Savvy Fighters, because the combination of Savvy Fighters plus Tom's sneeze is unstoppable. That is like the combo, because the only way for like it has to, if it's a fight 9 model, so like Sauron or Gil-galad or something, fight like the Balrog can't strike, but anything that's fight 9 that goes down to 5 can strike up to 8. So Tom with a sneeze and a strike guarantees a draw against those people, and they have to roll the 5 or 6 to do that. Otherwise, if you really are dumping into that, you can roll the 3 plus the sneeze, and they've just lost the fight. There's nothing they can do, even if they roll the 5 or 6. It requires the 1 in 9 chance that they roll the 5 or 6 and you roll the 1 or 2 to tie you, just to tie you. But a lot of the time, it's much better than that. You are sneezing and just winning the fight outright, and you're like, cool, that's fine by me. So that's why Savvy Fighters is way down, because if it was you called strikes for free, just you could call them for free, or like when like you could call them and get the 4 up, or it was Master a Battle strike to where you didn't have to do the roll. But just giving Bert and Tom strike plus the 4 up Master a Battle strike doesn't matter enough, because one already has it, one has a pseudo strike, and the 4 up just isn't consistent enough. It's nice to have, but it is far from necessary. But I think I would rather have it over Stone Troll Endurance, but that's tough, because typically the big single models the trolls love, because it gives them a good piece to be like, cool, I just banked 200 points from my opponent's army in one model, and I didn't need Savvy Fighters to do it, whereas Stone Troll Endurance helps against like, oh, weathering some shooting, weathering some lost fights, and just kind of getting them into the late game where they need to be, because they have to grind, especially in the late game. So I honestly am very indifferent on the order of these two, but I just think because the 6 up is just so not reliable a lot of the time, that I would lean towards Savvy Fighters. But I also really like rolling dice, and this lets you roll more dice. So on a personal preference, I'm probably going to put Stone Troll Endurance, and also just because Savvy Fighters being so low is kind of funny. Because originally I would put Dominant Presence down here further, but when we're looking at this like as the de facto order of upgrades, and kind of like how good they are, I think it still works. And so that leaves the last two, which is just this. There's no arguing. That's mine. That is the worst upgrade. It is just a temporary 1 body, which is like, cool, now you can go from 11 effective bodies to 14. It's fine. Like, you're taking it at 1,000 points because you have to take it. I really wish they had like a big boost once you hit the 1,000 points, because there are a decent number that are worth their points, but we'll kind of get into that in the wrap up. The kitchen utensils Honestly, I could maybe argue putting it above Savvy Fighters now. And honestly, I think I like having kitchen utensils these all in C tier, and that's mine. That is just being the de facto worst one. The actual, once again, the order of this tier is the one I least care about. It's just like it's fine. The re-rolling ones, I have rolled so many ones with these guys that it's like, the utensils would be good, and I have played enough of All Champion, Erebor, Reclaimed that re-rolling ones when you're killing things really easily is super nice. It's a lot nicer with Erebor, though, when it's just your army bonus and rewards you for going all Hero Hammer. And paying 50 points for it isn't as nice, especially when you have so many of these other upgrades that are really good and or crucial. But there is part of me that would put it above Savvy Fighters, because I just, even against multiple striking Thuras that can threaten them, you've got Heroic Defense from Bert and Tom, you've got Sneeze from Tom, Strike from Bert, who's Fight 8. Like, you've got the tools to deal with them, that honestly I'm fine doing this, where I think the survivability is what I've learned is more valuable than the killing potential. And this is just kind of keeping the same thing of like why Cover of Darkness and Troll Cunning are above Bowl and Rumbling, is its kill potential / some utility versus survivability. And the survivability has to come first because you have to live to get the kill power, because you will flub eventually. Just rerolling ones, cool. That's mine. That is the extra thing. If they were harder to destroy, or like they benefited from dominant presence, like if they were like, this counts as a troll for the rules of dominant presence, and you could like drop it on the edge of a thing, like, oh, here's an objective that's got stairs next to it, so I put the marker up at the top of the stairs, so you have to get a model all the way up there. And then like if it had like a wound or something, so they actually had to like not just be in base contact and automatically destroy it, or I did something else in addition to that. But just being only that isn't good enough, because like Savvy Fighters has two things, but it's kind of the same thing, right? Whereas like Bowl Them Over has two different effects that matter for a lot of things, and the two effects of Savvy Fighters are just not there most of the time. And that's mine. That is, it's just one effect. It's not that good. The only scenario it matters in my opinion, and currently and probably ever, is like domination. It could matter if we get like divide and conquer again, where it's like, oh, you've got to control the board edge quarters, so you can just be like, cool, all the trolls coming together, I'm just going to drop 3 markers in this quarter, and then I'm going to move the trolls to the other quarters to try and kill my opponent and gain control of them. And there's 3 markers in this quarter that I started in. That is the only scenario where I think that they are like good in, besides like domination, where it can be good because you're like, cool, I have my board edge, I'm going to drop markers on both that are on my side, and then push over into them, contest the middle, and potentially push into the back, and then you'll have that third marker you could place in the back half if you wanted to, after you to control 3 points plus the other 2 with your models. But you really only need to control 2 because you've got 3 trolls and they can each contest a point. So it is by far the worst. You are taking it last every time. It's a shame, because I love I might be biased in Tasty Livestock, but I'm going to be making the markers for it, and I love the idea of having like, here's a chicken, here's a cow, here's like all these little guys that are the Tasty Livestock, and oh, that's mine. That is like, here's the little stashes that they are controlling things. And I have like a burlap sacks on the bases of my trolls that are magnetized, so they can come off to be like, oh, I put your hero in a sack, here's the marker to show that they're paralyzed now, kind of thing. And I love the little trinkets they can do and fill the board up, but it's too bad and not worth 50 points. So kind of in recap, like things that are not quote unquote worth 50 points have to be very powerful to make up for it. And so like that's like Cover of Darkness is making it nighttime worth 50 points, probably in conjunction with getting Cave Dweller and the changes to Cave Dweller and the wounding, I think could be argued as 50 points. But like, I look at it as, what army would spend 50 points for that? Like, would Fellowship spend 50 points for it? Like, not really. Like, Breaking gets the blinding light effect with Frodo, so that's like a whole different thing. But like, what army would willingly spend 50 points to do this? And like, maybe a spam thing like Army of the White Hand, or any like maybe even Blackgate Open, since they have no shooting, so they're like, cool, I just want to make it nighttime so that way you can't shoot me, kind of thing. But for the most part, like 50 points for that. Like Full Bellies is strictly, if you look at the raw stats you gain, is worth more than 50 points. because you get a point of might for Bill, and then you get, I believe, 4 points of might for the other two, because I think they're base 1 might. So you're getting 5 points there, which is half the 50. You get 4 will for the non-Tom ones, which is another 20, which puts you at 45. And then you get 6 fate, which is then another 30 points, which puts you to 75. That sounds a little high. I might have miscounted the might a little bit. But like raw stat of heroics to points, you are getting more than 50 points of heroic stats, which I think is fine, because the will, I think you shouldn't count. It's, since Tom already has 3 and doesn't get any more for his sneezes, it's literally just the might and fate that you really care about most of the time. So it's while you're getting extra stats, I think it is basically perfectly costed as it is. Nothing like a warm fire is easily worth 50 points. Like getting the extra 12 inches of effects for both resistant to magic, courage buff, and the banner, and getting banner VPs is probably the single most point for pound value that you get. Things like Troll Cunning, Bowl Them Over, 50, like it's a lot harder to evaluate all these things. Rumbling Momentum, it's like, cool, you're getting a 33% increase to your attacks maybe half the time, if you look at it, but with, you kind of skew that in your favor, like I said, with combats and barges and stuff. So the evaluation, like Dominant Presence, when it's good, is like hundreds of points of value. When it's useless, it's 0 points of value, which is why it's so low. I don't like paying for any upgrade where there's a scenario or a matchup where it does nothing, because you can't afford to be playing down 50 or 100 points just because you have useless upgrades. And Cover of Darkness, against an army that has no shooting, it gives your stones +1, so it is always doing something. Belly's always doing something. Nothing Like a Fire, always doing something, because, oh, there's no banner VPs this scenario. Cool, I get the extra banner effect so I can spread out more. Troll Cunning, everyone wants to trap you, always good. Bowl Them Over, even when you don't need it for, maybe, let's say you take it first, you don't need it for the skirmishing thing, it still gives you the throwing weapon effect, as well as just kind of like the free, like you normally get a free wound before the lines clash, sometimes 2, once you have Bowl Them Over, because you do the first turn, you move in, oh, we're within 12, here's a volley, I get a hit, I probably get a kill. The next turn, okay, maybe I move first, but then maybe I don't even get in charge range, just so I can just say, cool, I'll throw another volley of boulders now hitting on 4s, and then the next turn, now I charge in, and so it just kind of, you get value no matter what. Tasty Livestock, if you don't get value out of Tasty Livestock, that probably means you're just winning the game. You are either getting flash killed, which means you're losing, but it's very hard to do, or your guys are just not taking wounds, so you're just winning the game. So Tasty Livestock is a 50-point upgrade that, like, very rarely will matter that you didn't get the value of the 50 points. Like, if you don't get the value of the 50 points, it's either because the game is going so well or so poorly that it probably didn't matter, right? So, like, if your dice are just completely betraying you and they're one-shotting trolls, one 50-point upgrade isn't going to change that for the most part. Things like Troll Cunning potentially could, but the biggest nicks against it is honestly, like, if you look at it, like, a fate point is 5 points. So I would argue that a full wound potentially isn't really worth 10 points. It's not double a fate, but I could think you could argue that, and even if you do, it's only 4, so it's only 40 points. So Tasty Livestock either having another effect or having 5 of them, and then I think it would have been a lot better for the 50 points, but even still, I think it's good enough. I really do wish all the upgrades had a main effect that they were there for and a secondary minor effect. That either the minor effect is the niche thing, or it makes the super powerful niche thing a little bit better. Because, like, Troll Cunning can't be trapped. Awesome, that is 100% why you're taking it. But even against things that aren't really going to trap you that often, getting to reroll all wounds against trapped models yourselves, that is a very nice little niche thing that's like, you wouldn't take Troll Cunning for it, but just that you're getting it tacked on to such a good effect is just gravy, because that is awesome. Bowl Them Over, I think, kind of is 2 effects. Like, turning them into throwing weapons is just 1 effect. But being able to shoot and scoot on a 5 and throw on the charge, because throwing weapons are just kind of in their own right 2 rules. So I think that that's fine. Nothing Like a Warm Fire, you're getting the banner VPs and the radius. So once again, strong generic effect. secondary effect that is very useful when it's good. Full bellies is just one thing, but it's so good that what else are they going to do? They could have done something else with it. The crazy thing would have been full bellies and Stone Troll Endurance being the same thing, where full bellies you get all the stats plus the 6-up save. Something like that would have been wild, but also would have been hilarious. Cover of Darkness, main effect, make it night. Secondary effect, you get Cave Dweller, but that they are combined together in a way that it's kind of one effect, but it's perfect because it's like, cool, you have all these things that just play into each other well. Savvy Fighters has 2 effects. Everyone gets Strike, but not that great because, like I said, effectively 2 of them already have it, and then you get the 4-up. So the reason why its 2 effects aren't as good is they are narrow. They're the same thing. It's just heroic strike based, so there's no hedging, where if you don't need heroic strikes, if you're against someone that doesn't have a hero that can strike into the trolls either well enough or reliably enough that they're not going to do it, then who cares? And they have to specifically do it against Bert for this to really matter. Stone Troll Endurance, 1 effect, it's super low on the list. Kitchen Utensils, 1 effect, super low on the list. My biggest complaint about Kitchen Utensils is it should have had a unique effect for each of the trolls, since each of them have their own utensil, right? So for having the fork, Bill should do this thing. For having the spoon, Tom should do this thing. For having the knife, Bert should do this thing. I think the most unique thing would have been to make it enhance each of their BPAs in some way, because that's already unique for each of them. And it would have been, I think, really honestly cool to be like, cool, we have this upgrade that rerolls 1s and strikes, which is just blanket very good. And then if you have these brutal power attacks coming up, which their BPAs are good for the most part. Bert's is kind of a meme, but Bill's has its use cases for against heroic defensing heroes. And then Tom's being able to prone people, very big deal because it prones everyone. So against the things that you can't sack, he can squash them into jelly and then let Bill go to town on them with their 3 or 4 dice now, re-rolling all wounds. This, I don't foresee this list overall changing. I think this is the only thing is that you can swap Cover of Darkness and bowl them over. But I think if you do, it doesn't really change the order. And one of the reasons why like Rumbling Momentum fell down is the combination of, I've always thought once you take one of these, taking the other one is so much more value. Because of that synergy, it's like that. And I just think that this is the order you have to do to hedge against all your matchups to be able to consistently win at a tournament. It's not going to feel good playing without full bellies, but if you need to, I think at 450 you just got to take cover or bowl. I'd probably lean towards bowl at 450 specifically, just because the mass shooting you should be facing is low enough that you can kind of bowl your way through it in a way and maybe avoid more draws, because the only thing I'm concerned of is at lower points taking cover might cause more draws for you. And since I haven't been able to playtest that specific interaction since learning about this necessity, that is a concern. Not a huge one, but just there to keep in the back of your mind of you take Cover of Darkness and they just go, cool, I'm just going to stay out of 12, and based on the scenario, maybe I can just force the draw because I can't risk like actually fighting you. Worst upgrade, you don't really want to play at 1,000 points because you don't want to take this upgrade. And honestly, I might just put Savvy Fighters down here just for that. I don't like doing that though, because it is not near, nothing is as close to as bad as this. And Kitchen Utensils is arguably worse than Savvy Fighters, and it probably is, but I think we'll do it like that. But I find it so, because the consistency of it. I just think it's funny that the only debate is once you get towards the bottom. It's the top part, the S and A, that is, in my opinion, locked. Nothing to argue there. You could switch this tier around a little bit, but I don't think there's any shifting between tiers. The consistency and survivability of these two are nice, and I think this would be the order I would do out of raw utility, and then this would be the order for the mindset of being as consistent as possible, and you need survivability before you need killing power a lot of the time. It's tough because killing power is good because then you maximize when you win fights, which is a big deal. You want to be getting the most out of it whenever you can. But the honestly, the biggest thing of why I don't put Kitchen Utensils higher, because I think I would rate Kitchen Utensils a lot higher if it weren't for Troll Cunning. And this is a point I'm glad I thought of, because Well, you really want to be securing your kills. And it's like, well, if you go up against someone who's trapped and you can roll 6 dice, rolling on threes, re-rolling ones, you're going to be killing a lot of things. But Troll Cunning just covers that and says, you know what, I'm going to re-roll the twos too. Or, oh, I only wound him on fours because it's a big hero. I re-roll the threes as well. So it's very, very, very disappointing that this doesn't have another effect. It needed, like, make all their brutal power attacks better in some capacity, or do something different for. I think it would have been really cool to do something unique for each of them, but it needed to be more than just re-rolling ones to wound. If it was re-rolling ones in the dual roll and re-rolling ones in the to wound roll, that would actually be super interesting, and I'd be very curious because I would maybe put it a lot higher than it currently is. Because rerolling ones, I have learned with Dory and the all heroes and champions of Erebor Reclaimed, all hero champs. Dory rerolling ones in the dual roll is a big deal. His 3 attacks, getting to reroll them, makes him a lot more consistent at getting the 5 or 6. Especially when combined with Thorn Banner and the Oin thing, it's very easy for him to re-roll 6 dice in a fight. Because the amount of times where it's like, oh, here's 3 dice. Cool, I rolled a 1, a 2, and a 3. Let's start with his rule to re-roll the 1, and then we'll Thorin Banner the 2, and then Oin, if I need to, I can re-roll the 3 now, and then probably one of them has hit a 5 at least, or if I need to might it, I can. So if it was re-roll ones, like I think Kitchen Utensil should have just been, you re-roll ones. Like, literally across the board. I think it could have been, you can re-roll ones in priority, you can re-roll ones in the dual roll, you can re-roll ones to hit with your, like, the stones. Like, it should have just been, when you roll a 1 for the army at all, you can re-roll it. Because I do think they should have gotten one of their things should have been a priority affecting thing. I think that could have honestly been what makes That's Mine That Is a lot better, is if it said you also, like, basically Mirror of Galadriel get a +1 to your priority roll by having this upgrade. Just anything to give them that priority advantage, to make your opponent burn their might for move offs, to stop your momentum and to stop their bowl them overs. Because that's one of the best things about those things, is threatening the opponent for having to call moves, to not be terrified of you winning the priorities. Because I do think if something had given them basically just Master of Battle, like Savvy Fighters, honestly, instead of giving them all Strike, could have just been like Master of Battle 4+ for them, which would have been so much better. Like, if it was just straight up Master of Battle on like a 4+, instead of they all can Strike and Master of Battle Strike on a 4+, it would be so crazy good to be like, cool, you called a move because I won priority. Here's a Master of Battle from all 3 of my heroes to make sure you have to, like, do something. Which, them all calling it doesn't really matter, but just the fact that that is something they could do is hilarious. And then being able to, like, take combats, which combats against them don't get called very often, but just basically getting the exact same effect of, if someone calls a strike, you can Master Battle it, but also getting it for move offs would have been a big deal. Anything to have bumped the bottom ones up a little bit would have been nice, but can't complain too much. I don't think they will see much play at those higher points, just because some lists become very oppressive with their numbers. So, but I still think they have play. I think literally up till 900 or 950, they're fine. And I don't think it's worth the 1,000 points, because you're basically just handing your opponent 50 points, because I don't know. And That's Mine That Is like 5 points to me, if that. Like, it shouldn't even cost anything. So the jump from 950 to 1,000 is the worst jump, because you have to take this upgrade. That was why I always thought the 800 mark was kind of their true cutoff, because then you just drop the C tier and you're only S through Bs, and you're getting only really decent value. But while I've not used them, I've become a sucker for the idea of re-rolling ones in the 6+s, because I've been burnt by enough 6+ Fury saves now that it's like, when you have the livestock and you have the bellies and you're rolling well on your fate, or having to spend might for it, it's nice to have. Just because having Bill get shot off the table in one turn by Legolas after losing his fate, being able to say, maybe he would have a fate left because he hit a 6 on his save, or hey, after those 3 shots hit, maybe he rolls another one and he lives for a turn or 2 more. That kind of thing has made me value it a lot more. With that, so looking at the comparison, I was lazy and didn't do the fancy names. stratified a little bit more, where I only did the 4 before, whereas I've got 5 now. Uh, Before I was putting kitchen utensils at the bottom, I would rate it far higher than the That's Mine That Is. And I was thinking it was by far the worst, and I was putting it under Stone Troll Endurance, and I think they're basically kind of interchangeable in a way. Cover I had way down here because, like I said before, it's not necessary. It is so crucial for the matchups where it makes them go from unwinnable when played correctly to now you can have play in them. So otherwise, these 3 have the idea and principle of why they are up there is the same. Cover of Darkness / Bowl moving up now makes the other one move from here under Rumbling Momentum to above, just because of the consistency and the synergy. Tasty Livestock I still had there because, like I said, it has impressed me every time. Savvy Fighters has fallen because once you get to that point level, because the idea with this tier list was just kind of generically like the things you take, and you are more likely to take Savvy Fighters earlier on in the list than you would take Dominant Presence, but the theory behind that this is just like the order now, and rating like basically why it's the order and how good they are. So you've got the batches there. So for the most part, I'm pretty happy with my initial tier list and looking at it. Seeing the S tier, because honestly, you could put these 2 up there, but I think the stratification of this list looks a little better. And I kind of wish I had done 5 on this one. I would like to go back and see my mindset on this one back then, but alas, obviously can't do that. So pretty happy that before having played them, even a single game, to not only have had played them a bunch of times this edition, to having won a tournament with them, seeing that like I was pretty close. I'm sad I had That's Mine That Is as high as I did, because it is definitely the worst one in hindsight. I wish I had put that one at the bottom. Dominant Presence, I'm super happy, both it and Savvy Fighters being here and B tier, which is kind of equivalent to the C tier, is nice that I was right on that. My evaluation of them being Fight 7 with Bill Fight 8, Strike, Sneeze, that's there. The only thing was when I thought of Cover of Darkness is necessary for, like I have said so many times, those skirmishing matchups where you literally can't catch the opponent. No amount of terrain matters. They're just going to kite you, and trying to play the time, because that is the thought that I didn't touch on earlier. The one option that you have when you are looking at something like that matchup where I was against like basically all mounted Rohan that can skirmish on horseback, or like it would be the same for Rivendell Knights. They're all on horseback. You're not catching them. They're hitting pretty well. The strength 3 bows wound you on 6s, which is not great. Which honestly, Stone Troll Endurance would go up way higher on my list. I think it should give them all +1 defense plus the 6+ save. That was my idea for Stone Troll Endurance, of how it could have 2 effects, one that's always good and the one that you are basically getting as a freebie for taking the upgrade. +1 defense across the board would be insane, going to D7 for Tom and D8 for the other 2, because now all bows are wounding them not great. It takes a crossbow to wound them well, except for Tom, but you can hide him. And then the 6-up save is just gravy on top of that. That would easy fix, would make the upgrade way more, would add a lot more interest to the list, because that I hate that, in my opinion, that this is the order and that there's no more creative flexibility. Like there still is for playing them casually, because you can do like, oh, here's an aggressive build of I want to be calling moves and I want to be charging all the time because I'm going to take Rumbling Momentum and bowl them over at like 600 points. So I'm going to take like full bellies, warm fire, bowl them over, momentum. And I'm not even caring about not being trapped, because I'm just going to go and I'm going to hit them hard and I'm just going to table them. Or I'm going to go full survivability, and it's like, oh, I take like Cover of Darkness, full bellies, Tasty Livestock, Stone Troll Endurance. And it's like, I'm not really caring about killing power. I'm just going to go sit somewhere and you're not going to be able to shoot me. Once you get into me and start putting wounds on me, I can fury it, I can feel no, like fury / feel no pain, I can fade it, and then I can even take the wounds and then eat some snacks afterwards to get it back. So I think at like the 600 point you can take those different packages, which is interesting, But for a tournament, I don't think that any of those individual packages. The only one that would make the most sense to potentially take is the survivability one. But it's basically the exact same. And like with survivability, you're still wanting to take Troll Cunning. So it doesn't even really matter there. You would basically be dropping nothing like a Warm Fire to pick up Tasty Livestock. And then when you get to 650, you would take Stone Troll Endurance instead of nothing like a Warm Fire for the full survivability build. But I would argue that the 6 up, when you have Darkness already, I guess if that's what you did, if you drop Darkness to have the Endurance, Full Bodies, Troll Cunning, and Tasty Livestock at 600, that could be like technically the survivability build. But I would argue that the Banner reroll, Anti-Magic, Courage check bonus, and the Darkness preventing shooting is way more survivable than a 6-up Feeling of Pain, and the wounds from the Livestock are. Those get better after you have the previous ones. So it's not interchangeable. It's kind of like a pyramid. You got to build the base, the strong foundation first. I do wish it wasn't so cut and dry, like this is the order you take them for the most part. That is what I'm imagining will be, honestly, my final tier list for the Trolls. I don't think as is, unless something drastically changes, like if they came in and eroded one of them for some reason, like if they actually start taking balance a little bit more active in the scene, where they're like, cool, we've seen Trolls, they're not performing as well as we would like, or they're performing as well as we'd like, but it's always the same upgrades, and we want to see some mix-up, so they buff some of the other ones to make them more viable, and also make them more viable at higher points, because once you have to start taking the crappy ones, it feels a lot worse. But yeah, I've been having a blast with the Trolls. They're an awesome list, and I hope that the tier list is interesting enough and makes you guys interested in maybe giving them a spin and seeing how they work, because they are fun. I think they are a lot of fun. They're interesting. They've got unique stuff. Same with All Champion, Erebor Reclaimed, this list and that one. Which if you want a tier list on my thoughts on the Erebor champs, let me know, because I've been playing them a whole bunch on the TTS tournaments and have played them a few times in person. And I've not won every game with them, but I've basically effectively tabled my opponent every game. It's gotten close, and if the game didn't end when it did, I probably would have tabled them, which is unfortunate for them, but it is what it is. It's kind of a balancing factor for them, but they are a mean machine, and I love them. But thank you guys so much for sticking around for this. I know that this was a quite a long video for the most part, so but I really wanted to get a lot of my thoughts out there for the Trolls and the order of why and the reasoning behind it, and why I think that this is just kind of the way. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I have the in-depth barge video. I basically got that figured out, and I'm hoping to get that out soon, so that way people can learn how barge works and the intricacies of it, both for how to play the Trolls and how to play against like the Eagles and stuff, especially with how prevalent they are. And we're probably not going to get a nerf to them anytime soon. If we're lucky, we'll get one in August in 4 months, but I would not hold my breath on any balances changing happening until maybe February. I think February next year is our first chance for a balance change, so basically the biggest shakeup we'll get is if we get the next stuff for the Legacy PDF and the 3rd book. So we have to get that first before we even get close to balancing. It'll probably be, my thought is, at least a year post the edition no longer being in beta that we get balance changes. So learning how to play against the monsters that are plaguing people right now, I think, is important. Once again, thank you guys so much. Please, if you enjoyed this and you want to see more stuff, let me know what you want to see, any tier lists you might like I said about Erebor champs or any other monster things. Thank you guys, and have a good rest of your day or night.